We wanted to get off to a fast start this year, and as a result, taken bills that have passed in the past and put other bills together, in spite of the fact that the committees, in many cases, have not had their organizational meetings. And so, there have been a couple of stumbles, all in our effort to show the American people that we're here to listen to their priorities.
So John Boehner there as President Obama issues veto threats at a record pace as the new Republican-led Congress gets underway. 8 or 9 veto threats so far, pending on who's scoring it. The most since Ronald Reagan started officially issuing veto threats back in the mid-1980s. And former New Hampshire Governor John Sununu remembers the days then as well as today, former White House Chief of Staff under President George H.W. Bush. Morning to you, Governor, and thanks for coming back. A lot of what Reagan was doing was fighting over similar pieces of legislation. It wasn't 8 or 9 different issues. Now to the question. What is the impact on Congress when threats like these are leveled so soon, so quickly?
Look, when I was Chief of Staff for George Herbert Walker Bush, we had to negotiate with a Congress that was overwhelmingly Democrat. And there's an art form to using the veto. You don't start with the president throwing it out. You communicate it privately. You use it as a negotiating tool. But this president doesn't have any idea on how to negotiate legislation. He wants to pontificate a result, and to him, negotiation is having everybody follow in lockstep. This is just a self-serving defeat on the part of the president. He's not going to get anything if all he does is throw veto threats out in public.
And so what he would argue, and what the White House has argued, is they're telling Congress, don't pursue legislation that you know the president doesn't like. Now, what about that point?
Well, look, he wants to set the entire agenda. Negotiating is having a little bit of each party's agenda come to the fore and be developed into legislation. His staff should be down at the Hill with the leaders of the Republican side, talking about the slices of issues that they can't take, and talking about the areas that they have common interest. There could be resolving problems on trade. They could be resolving problems on tax reform. They could be issues that the president may not like completely, but if he gets something he really wants tacked onto it, then he might be willing to take that legislation. That's the negotiation and the art of being a president. This president hasn't done it with Congress, and he hasn't done it with our allies.
If that's the case, what is your expectation for this
It's
next
the same
2
thing
years?
as the last 6 years. He got a 0 for 6 years, and he's going to get a 0 afterwards. The only legislation this president has really gotten is the one he rammed through, Obamacare, which is killing the country.
Well, Mitch McConnell in 60 Minutes said, listen, this is the process. And sometimes there's a process that makes a president feel uncomfortable. And then he went on to make the point that Harry Reid did not make the president uncomfortable because no bills were sent down to the White House. So how will that change now, Governor?
Well, it will change because you have 2 leaders, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, who have been around a long time and want to get some legislation. After a while, this president, I suspect, will discover that he's not getting anything. He's going to start worrying about legacy. He's going to realize he has no legislation passed except Obamacare. And he's going to have to go down and I think, eat a little bit of humble pie and work out a deal on issues they can find compromise on.
So you
but
see,
it's not going to happen if all he does is pontificate legislation.
So you see some movement possible then? And it's not a zero-sum game in 2 years.
I see some movement possible if this president stops thinking that he's a dictator and starts realizing what it takes to be a president.
Well, give me an example on how he concedes. Where does he give in?
Look, George Herbert Walker Bush saw that the country needed a 5-year budget. He swallowed a little bit of taxes in order to get it. This president might have to swallow the Keystone Pipeline on a piece of legislation. He might have to swallow some of the things in tax reform that he doesn't like, that the Republicans would like to get as incentives to create growth. It's give and take. There are sometimes very simple issues that make the difference between a piece of legislation being passable or not passable.
Governor, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
John Sununu, thanks for coming back today.